Hello, and welcome to another episode of Shakespeare Reviews. Today's movie is not a direct adaptation of a Shakespeare play, but an attempt to set up a literary spin-off of two minor characters from the play Hamlet. The film is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead from 1990, directed by Tom Stoppard, who wrote the play in the 60s that launched his writing career. This was his only outing as film director to tell the story of what happened to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern while other more important things in Hamlet were going on. And while following them, they gradually discover who they are, what their destiny is, and that it is unavoidable. This play within a play stars Tim Roth and Gary Oldman as the title characters on their journey from one comedic gag to another. So, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. Now, I'm going to go ahead and intro this because I think I know what Shakespeare's view of this play is. So I'm
remaining silent.
I'm going to start off by saying that I first encountered this back when it came out, and there was a bit of almost a slight cultish following that went on back then. People thought it was different, unique, strange.
Different. It is different.
And that aspect of it really drew people in. I think it also helped a lot, possibly a whole lot, that it came out 1 month after Mel Gibson and Glenn Close starred in their version of Hamlet. Because this film, while being very different and sometimes interesting and funny, it drags a lot. And especially if you don't understand Hamlet or don't know it very well, there's going to be a lot of it that is lost on you. And that combination of Hamlet and then Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead in the movie theater, often showing at the same time, was a huge boon to the success of this film, or at least the public interest. So, yeah, I actually thought it was quite interesting at the time. I thought it was different. Admittedly, when it came out,
different is a good word for this play.
My experience with the theater was very limited, so I probably gave it a little more credit than it deserved. But at the same time, there were some things in there I thought were quite interesting, and certainly as a pairing with Mel Gibson's Hamlet, I thought it worked fairly well. What did you think, Will?
Where do I begin? Let's see.
Please count the ways.
This was a movie.
It was. Well spoken.
Yep, yes, and it was certainly loosely based on Hamlet. Rather the characters of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. That much is certain. You said this was Tom Stoppard's only directorial outing.
His only time to direct a film.
Oh, I wonder why that was.
One-shot wonder.
I wonder how it got made.
I can tell you.
Oh, please do, because I have opinions, and I'm wondering, do I let them all spill? Do I spill the tea? I go off and extemporize on everything about this play? Or rather, this film, rather.
He wrote this as a play, and it did very, very well. Let's see, it won the 1968 Tony Award for Best Play.
Okay.
It had 420 performances, and it was, it was very well thought of, huge success, and that helped start his career, and he became a very well-known writer, a screenwriter, a playwright, and he became like the golden boy in that regard. People really liked what he did, and he was making the studios money. And this was a labor of love. He wanted to bring this play that he really loved to the screen and wanted to direct it. And, the studios, just like they do, they've done it for several other famous films in the past, saying, okay, we'll let you make this one if you make these other two for us. And that kind of thing. I mean, he was making them so much money and they wanted to maintain that relationship. Yeah, we'll throw a little bit of money at this low budget film and let you do this. Sure. And keep doing work for us, and that's it. I mean, that's really what happened.
So this is based off of the play, which I have not read, I have not seen.
Fair enough.
So I'm wondering, where did it go wrong? Because you mentioned it as a play within a play. Yeah.
That's a stretch.
It's a stretch. At points, there are play within a play moments.
Very true.
When you are seeing Rosencrantz and Guildenstern behind the scenes, and they are the cause of Polonius's death.
That's hilarious. I'm sorry.
I will grant you that. That bit is hilarious. If the entire movie was following these two characters going, oh, what are we doing? Oh, we're going to go see our friend Hamlet. And all of that. That would have been fun. They show up, they immediately know what they're saying to Claudius and Gertrude when they are ensconced in the world of Hamlet. However, they are not people. They're not even two characters in search of a freaking author. They are... I don't know what they are. They are people who, at points, are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Either Hamlet's old friends or characters dropped into a story. But they do not know where they are, and that could have been well done. Who are we? What are we? Why are we here? It was a constant who's on first bit, which, if they had bothered to make it bloody interesting, could have worked. However, well, let's go over here. We're going to treat this as completely real. Oh, now it's not real. What is it? And I was incredibly frustrated the entire time. There were funny bits, I will grant you. There were funny bits. The Polonius bit, freaking hilarious. That they accidentally caused the death of Polonius, and then Hamlet's just like, oh, crap, didn't mean to do that. That was funny. The juggling bit, or when one of them, I don't remember who's Rosencrantz, who's Guildenstern? I'm doing it now, because they sure as hell didn't know. Now, when he's doing the bit with gravity of, I bet you're going to assume that these two things fall at the exact same moment. And you'd be correct. That was funny. That was a well-executed joke. That was good. Therein, my love for this film ends, other than Richard Dreyfuss's costuming. I thought that was top-notch. I thought that was grand. I thought he looked great. Richard Dreyfuss was fun and menacing. But here's the problem. You're treating everything as reality or as an unreality, but then when you're on the pirate ship, it is now very obviously a play. And it is a play where things are getting a little too real at points, but it is a play. If everything had been done that way, it would have worked. There were funny bits on that, where the pirate ship crashing into their ship, and Gary Oldman is asleep and he wakes up and barely, and he goes back to sleep. That is funny. But this play didn't know what it wanted to be. Rather, this film. It did not know what it wanted to be. And therein is the problem. I know I wrote down 3 times, I'm looking at it right here, it says, how did this get made? All caps. And at one time I made it boldface and underlined. I mean, seriously, if you're familiar with the podcast, How Did This Get Made? This movie should be looked at on that show, so that comics of far greater talent and ability than the two of we have can just destroy this piece, because this is not art. This is something that just causes Shakespeare to yell at a camera and to start drinking heavily. You did this to me, Tom Stoppard. I am the reason. I mean, rather, no, I don't even know what I'm saying. You did this to me, Tom Stoppard. You are the reason I am bald. I had a full head of hair last week. Everyone knows this. Ask anyone. You are the reason my face is turning red as I'm getting viscerally upset about this film. Also, why the obsession with physics? Anyway, back to you.
Hey, don't forget probability too. I mean, definitely an obsession with probability. I think that's one of the tough things about the film, because there are some reasonably, even the joke about the coin flip was a little interesting and funny, in my opinion. But it went on 3 or 4 times as long as it should have had. And that's the biggest problem with a lot of the comedic bits. I mean, I think some of them are actually more funny than you are giving it credit for, because they stretched it so long I think they made a joke flat.
Well, yeah, it was stupid and self-indulgent thinking it's clever. It's like, oh, look how clever we are. Look how clever.
Yes.
Like the shower scene, the shower bit of like, oh, what's real? What's not real? Oh, is she a woman or is she a boy dressed up to look like a woman? I mean, it's saying, look how clever we are. That is what it's doing. This is not a film trying to say something. This is not a film just trying to entertain you. It's trying to prove the cleverness of the filmmakers.
This is true, and I will say that it does come across very, very much like an indie film. Like
oh yeah, totally.
This is a low-budget film. This is an artsy film. This is a film that's they are trying to get into Sundance.
I bet it did great at the South by Southwest.
Right, but
I blame your hometown.
I can't deny that, but. It was it was an interesting film, but I do think it was inflated because of the timing, because of being around Mel Gibson's Hamlet, and I think they rode those coattails way a lot. At the same time, I mean, as a secondary film to watch after Hamlet, I'm actually okay with that. Okay. I mean, I know you are very much against it and think that it probably deserves to have an accident in the film room and disappear forever.
We should do this. What we should do with this, what was done with the video game version of E.T. We're gonna take it out into the desert, every copy. We're gonna bury him. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna E.T. this thing.
And and then what's going to happen is in 10,000 years, when all of the rest of the film and our computers suddenly lose it and all the digital representations of our movies are gone, and some future society is going to start digging and unearth this huge stockpile, this treasure trove that we saved in anticipation of the future apocalypse, so that it would be around for everyone, and would become the epitome of what our view of the best art from our society was. In fact, they won't have Shakespeare anymore, but they'll have Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. That will be, and everything they know about Shakespeare, they'll learn from that movie. That's what will happen if you do that.
And in that case, so they really liked this E.T. game.
Yeah, right?
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Hopefully this society will be better than us. And they'll be like, what was wrong with these people?
And they'll have this new show with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern and E.T. in it, in a nice comedy show that everybody watches 10,000 years from now.
And then a few years after that, they will rediscover this internet-based show of ours. I'm like, wow, the little guy, he really hates this. I mean, just there were so many possible points of brilliance for this, but all of them were abandoned. If you wanted to treat it as a serious treatise of who are you,
yes,
you could have. For instance, the "I have of late, but wherefore I know not" speech. That was that a flashback? I don't really know. But it goes from squalor to finery, and oh, that was a really interesting take. But is this just a good treatise on who we are and what is humanity? Or is it a silly play within a play? And again, I go back to, this doesn't know what it is. It wants to do both, and it failed to do both. I mean, and it could have honestly struck a balance saying, well, it's both a look into the human condition, but also we're going to have jokes. And you can do that. And Tom Stoppard knows how to do that. I mean, look at Shakespeare in Love. The play, not so much the film. The film, won some awards. The play is quite brilliant. And it goes into the deeper human condition while making silly and stupid jokes. And some of which are quite clever, but it never once says, at least the play, look how clever we're being. It's allowing you to go, that was clever.
Hey, you know who wrote Shakespeare in Love?
I know, Tom Stoppard. That's why I'm holding it up. Because there is that, and then there is this. And Shakespeare in Love knew what it was. This does not.
Yes.
I cannot endorse this.
And admittedly, I think that's the difference between a writer and a director. Some writers can make the transition. I think some cannot. And Stoppard was he got his labor of love out of his system, and boom, okay.
All right.
But there are still so many good things about this film
Okay.
that we haven't even discued yet.
Well, then let's do it. I've given you a few.
Yeah, true. Gary Oldman and Tim Roth. I mean, I honestly, they were a fun pair. I mean, I think they played off each other really well. They are very good actors, in my opinion. And this showcased them. They really weren't well known before this film. No. And I really think this film helped their careers along. I mean, it brought them to movies like Reservoir Dogs and Rob Roy and Four Rooms. It may not have been them if it wasn't for this film. For Oldman, you know, like, well, Bram Stoker's Dracula soon after. I don't think he would have necessarily got that role if it was not for this.
Really?
And,
you think?
You know, yeah. I don't think anybody knew who he was before this film. This was like his, this was like, this is where his career got to start. So, I mean, honestly, the success of this film, I think, played heavily into their success. I mean, they're great actors, and I think they would have had some, but I don't think it would have been the same. This was, like I said, a bit of an indie film where they went with actors who were not known for the leads. They did have some good character actors in the supporting roles. Joanna Miles, Donald Sumner, Ian Glenn, and Joanna Roth. Many of you wouldn't necessarily recognize them, but if you look at the movies they've been in, you'd be like, oh, okay. I mean, they're solid character actors who did a decent job with what they were given in this film, I think. And of course, Richard Dreyfuss is Richard Dreyfuss.
Yes.
And if you don't know who Richard Dreyfuss is, you know, just stop watching this right now and go rent a few movies. I mean, or something. I mean, just go get an account from Amazon Prime or Netflix. I mean, for the love of God, it's Richard Dreyfuss. But yeah, I mean, they also did something else I thought that was kind of right at a time for a low budget film. I mean, they filmed in Croatia and Yugoslavia, and at least they went to a location, and that wasn't very common even back then. It was and that did add a bit to the charm. I mean, imagine if they'd done that all in a studio set or something like that. Or
which weirdly, following like the end of the piece where they're on the pirate ship, if it all looked like a set, I would have forgiven it a bit more, because it would be trying to put reality into an unreality.
Maybe that would have been a good play for it. But no, I don't know. I thought that at least some of the castle and them traveling scenes were aided in the location. I mean, admittedly, they dragged way too long, but at least the scenery was pretty. That's what I'm saying.
The scenery was gorgeous. I will grant you that.
So I mean, there were some pluses, and I think if they shaved off a good percentage of the film, it would have been a lot better.
Maybe.
I mean,
this film could possibly be redeemed by someone else going in and giving it a good strong edit.
Really?
I mean, right. It's not that long of a piece.
No, it's not.
But I had to stop it and look at my watch and say, how long have I been here? And
it may not even be a huge cut. I mean, the pacing was just bad. And a first-time director, it happens. And I think the pacing issue, sometimes that can be fixed with just some slight tighter cuts, some shifting around of things. I mean, it can be, even the music can play a part in that. And
oh my gosh, the soundtrack. Oh my God. Did it sound to you like a late 80s action movie?
I think that's being kind, but yeah, sure, we can go with that. I mean,
like all you
kind of, I mean, I would say it was, the music was so generic, it wouldn't have even worked for an Arnold Schwarzenegger action film of the 80s. I mean, maybe a Beastmaster type thing, or no, Deathstalker type. No, that music was actually pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the music was rough. So yeah.
Let me give it a very good compliment. So,
okay. All right.
When they were doing the pantomime, I mean, the players, I should say, when they were doing the pantomime of what we would recognize logically as Hamlet, and the the pantomime sword fight where they're fighting like this.
Mhm.
And then they had the blood scarves and everything. I thought that was brilliant. I thought how they acted
Agreed.
as the ship and hanged the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern in their version of the play. How they did all of it. I thought that was brilliant. It showed, rather convincingly, I felt, what Middle Ages theatre was like. Traveling theatre.
Fair enough.
Of just, here's how you do everything. And it comes from this beautiful, wonderful tradition from the Italians that then took it out and becomes commedia dell'arte everywhere else in Europe. But it was brilliant and beautiful, and I just thought this was great. The motif with the pages was interesting.
Yes. Yes.
Of like him turning it into paper airplanes and little boats and whatnot. All right, yeah, whatever. I mean, it didn't detract for me, but again, I don't like it. Like, I'm sorry. I know.
that's fair. That's fair.
You were so excited about doing this this particular film review, and I've just come in and vomited viscerally my distaste for it all over your plate. And I mean, hell, you could probably, since you have the edit of this episode, you could probably go in and just be like, I'm gonna take all the nice things he said and then it's gonna be a short episode, but
Don't tempt me.
Yeah, and then just go in and go, oh, you know what, we're having some connectivity issues, but Shakespeare wanted me to let you know that, he loves this. I mean, and you're just going to take that bit right there, too. But
I'll just take out the final rating and give my rating, and then we'll just go, and Shakespeare agrees, and then I'll just cut to you with a still cap of you going,
just
something like that. Yeah, right?
No,
yeah, totally.
I mean, this movie upset me so much. I mean, as you could tell, where I was literally turning red as I was.
Well, let's ask.
About it.
Let's ask the big question. I mean, with some re-edits, do you think editing would have made it redeemable for you, or is it a lot more fundamental than that?
I think it's a bit more fundamental than that, because the director, because tonally things shift throughout, and yes, obviously tone changes scene to scene, but there is an overall tone for a piece that needs to be present, and I feel that this felt like cobbled together drafts. That it's like, oh, here's my version of scene 1, here's my version of scene 2, without going through all of it and making sure it works as one piece. It felt like a series of bits strung together, and we called it a movie.
Yes.
And
that's actually very fair.
And not even Monty Python did that. I mean, well, they did with Meaning of Life, but that was designed to be that way.
Yeah, that's different.
This was... It's uneven. I feel that there is a good story, whether you are looking at what is the meaning of life through characters who don't know who they are. Who are you? Who am I? All of that, or rather just let's go take these two side characters on a fun quest and see where they're interacting with the story, and here's why all of this happens. Here's why Hamlet decides that playing insane is a good idea. Here's why Polonius dies. And because they're just being stupid and egging him on. And they could be over on the side going, I think we gave him some very good advice. Yes, I do too. Boom, 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 boom. And you could watch the play happen behind them. I think that would have been an interesting way of moving forward. But this is not great, in my opinion. And I am so very sorry, because you were excited. If you hated it as much as I do, then this would be a far more interesting conversation. But you're over here saying, oh, you know, there's a lot of really good points and the scenery is beautiful. And I'm like, oh my God, burn it, bury it. And then you're like, but aliens in the future. And I'm like, no, we need to write a note with it too saying, don't watch this.
That's true. And I bring out aliens in the future and it still doesn't sway him. You know, it's a lost cause for him.
That really is true. So,
yeah. I totally,
it's... So we need to bury a copy of this review with all the copies Just
go.
so they know, like, oh,
Just to
right.
cover ourselves.
It's like
yes.
the little guy. Yeah, he doesn't love it. No.
Yeah. Otherwise, 10,000 years from now, it might spawn a whole religion of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, the great deciders with the coin flip.
Are you Rosies or are you Gilders?
Right?
Like, what side do you fall on? I mean, do your ceremonies involve flipping a coin 38 times? And be like, oh. Tails, actually. So, not heads.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, breaking that stream.
I know!
No, I think it was just mainly a misstep from a only time director who maybe was a little too close to his own work and made some bad decisions. And I think the foundation was actually really good. And from the history of the play and how well it did, I've read up on it. I haven't seen it, but I've at least read up on it. It was a lot better. I don't think he translated it well to the screen, unfortunately. But at the same time, there's some good stuff in there. And I think as a companion movie to Hamlet, pick a version. I mean, it could be a slight distraction as a movie to watch afterwards if you want to make that marathon movie night go a little bit. And eat some food. Maybe not for Shakespeare because he'll be in a vomitorium, but I mean, for the rest of you, maybe eat some food during the second film. Relax a little bit, enjoy it. It's not something to be. I'll be honest. The pacing is so off. It's not something to be concentrating on 100%. Because your brain will, I think, do what Will's did over there and implode a bit.
If you are going to do a marathon watching of this with Hamlet, call me up and I will just give it the MST3K treatment in your own living room. I'll just be like,
I'm sure he already has. He's practiced that. I bet the whole time it was going on, he was yelling at the screen, making comments.
It's like, what are you talking about?
Right. But
who are you?
Still,
who are any of us really?
I'm gonna go ahead and give it a tentative heads on the coin flip.
Oh, all right. In that case,
and we'll do it that way. And I'll say a tentative. I mean, it's without Hamlet, without an interest in Hamlet, I don't know if you'll like it. Okay. I think it's just a standalone piece. But it's something like that. It's worth seeing, in my opinion. Go ahead.
I'm gonna flip my coin here and see. I'm just gonna let the coin decide for me.
Oh well.
Still came up tails. Ha! What are the odds? It's a 50-50 shot every time, people. Yeah. I can't endorse it, but there are some good bits. There you go.
And it's nice to have a movie that statisticians can appreciate and feel that they're being represented for once, because they never really are.
It's this and Moneyball.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And, tune in next week for Moneyball as we continue our statistician series.
Moneyball. Which Shakespeare play does that follow? I keep forgetting.
That's actually a spin-off of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead. Yeah, which is a spin-off of Hamlet.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and there you go.
Yes. That works. Okay, I get that.
Why do you let me talk?
Because the world needs laughter, and
there we have it. And I'm making you laugh at this.
I tend to encourage it whenever I can. Well, all right. Yeah, thanks, and thanks for joining us here today, everyone. If you haven't seen Rosencrantz Guildenstern are Dead, it's not available everywhere, but you should be able to find it. Came out in 1990, and take a look, enjoy. But I do recommend seeing Hamlet with it if you can.
Yes. And in the meantime, please, if you really love this show half as much as we enjoyed making it for you, then we enjoyed it twice as much as you did, and that's called math. That being the case, please go support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/lifesaffair. And also follow us on all the social medias. You can follow me personally on Instagram at Shakespeare.approves and on Facebook at Shakespeare Approves. Andrew, where can they find you?
They can find me at the Life's Affair page, of course, all over the place, facebook.com/Life's Affair, and my own personal page, facebook.com/Irish Bard.
Fantastic. Until next time, friends, we will see you, well, I guess, in your living room, yeah.
whenever we can, every Friday.
Cheers.